I'm also cognizant that I'm the third American woman in a row. So I'm going to do something a little more lighthearted, based on some of the themes that have come up in Jennifer's really amazing talk and Holly's really amazing talk. We're going to play a little bit of a game, but don't worry, I won't make you do anything dorky or embarrassing. I actually, except Renton. Yeah, we'll do a little dare with Renton. But before I get started, I'll tell you just a little bit quickly about myself. I have been here in Ireland for 8 years now. I came here to do my master's degree and stuck around. Clearly, I loved the weather. I did my and I'm telling this story because I know there are some lightning talks later, and a few folks were like, oh, what can I talk about? I was like, you can talk about anything. You can talk about yourself. And especially, I think for more junior folks, and to call out, I think especially women, it's important to talk about non-traditional paths into tech and also non-traditional roles in tech. Because honestly, I think I've been in Genesis since 2018. I don't think if you asked me 3 years ago what a product manager did, that I could answer that question with high confidence. And a lot of you probably feel the same beyond paperwork generating machine. Or, hey guys, I'm trying to get us out of these stability issues and you keep on trying to get me to build shiny new stuff. I absolutely love 2 points, one from Jennifer and one from Holly. Our reliability is our most important feature, and your product managers, regardless of where you are, whether you're at Genesis or elsewhere, should be held accountable for that. If they can't answer questions about these, when we can't achieve that yes and yes, they should be able to answer questions and manage that trade-off. And similar, I know Holly said number 1, security, number 2, stability, and then features, all the way. And often as we're developing new features, we may find holes in what's already there and need to have some difficult discussions with our customers about expectations that we set in good faith, but also with ourselves about decisions that we made in the past. Incidents are inevitable. Missing deadlines, or maybe you made promises that at the time were accurate, and then you need to change. That's inevitable. But I like to say, to help people understand what a product manager doing their job well should be. A lot of PMs might not agree or like this, but I'll just give you my spin because I have the microphone. It's very gendered, but I actually like to say that at the end of the day, I'm a midwife for good decisions. So, when Renton asked me to talk, I was like, well, I'm not SRE, and geez, anyone qualified to talk about SRE or even listen probably doesn't want to hear me talk too much. But then I noticed, top of the pyramid, you had product there, which can often be in a bit of an ivory tower. But every theme coming up today resonated perfectly with me. So anyway, I actually came from engineering. I did a humanities degree. My focus was linguistics. The first line of code that I ever wrote was for a psycholinguistics laboratory. And back in the day, we would run these eye tracking experiments and put people in front of this big pane of glass, incredibly heavy pane of glass, bounce light off their retinas and see, if I make you read this confusing, ambiguous, anaphoric sentence, how will you process it? And what does this tell me about the psychological reality of linguistic structures? And yeah, that wasn't super relevant to my life, but I learned how to code. Then I was a machine learning engineer for a good bit of time, including here at Genesis. Quite a few of you I know from back then. I was a resident architect for a good bit of time within the data science group. And I moved to product a year and a half ago, and I'm a principal PM. So yeah, some of us know what it's like to be woken up in the middle of the night by pager duty. And I'm sure, despite my best efforts, butterfly effect, I've made some decisions that have woken you guys up in the middle of the night. Yeah, inevitable failure. So anyway, I wanted to do a slightly more interactive activity here. I made a little bit of a game. When I was a kid, I used to love choose your own adventure books. It's not that complicated because I'm not a genius, and I made this in like 2 hours last night myself. I learned the Genesis VPN blocks this domain. So I was all ready to like hotspot on my phone. Then when I physically came in the office, everything was fine. But I had a plan A, B, and C. So we're gonna make some choices here and think about, I know this word trade-offs that I was inclined to use, it's really not accurate, right? So Jennifer was talking about reliability versus velocity. Are those the two nouns? Okay, I was trying to repeat in my head to remember. It's very bold giving a talk based on things people said while you were still kind of on the clock. So for myself, I've been thinking about this from a product perspective in terms of innovation versus stability. So, and if you dig a little deeper, and I love this aspect of reliability, right? You're never going to be 100% reliable. If that's your stated goal, we're after hours, you're kind of full of shit and probably don't know what you're talking about. You need to be able to articulate. So from a product perspective, when I'm looking at innovation, what customer group am I actually targeting? What is their ability to absorb change? If we're targeting our newly migrated on-prem to cloud customers with some shiny AI in a highly regulated environment, that might really be a mismatch. So looking at that axis of innovation, and then to break down a little bit, when I say innovation, what does that mean? You have the evidence from the two talks before me. Innovation isn't just about shiny features. It can be about the culture that we build and how we rank our priorities. And sometimes having the courage to say, I'm not going to chase that shiny, generative AI overclock solution. And I'm going to sit with some simplicity because I know my customers and what they need. So digging into that idea of innovation, what is it? But also stability, what does that mean? So we're going to make a few choices here. I've set up this scenario. So your cat wakes you up at 3 a.m. Again, like, dude, like, what do you want? I made this about cats because I know we've got Jody in Canada eagerly waiting to come back to Galway and play with my cats. So it's a shout out to her. There's no pictures of my cats in this. And all the photos are DALL-E generated. I didn't take a job away from an artist because I have no artistic ability, and I made this last night. So, but yeah, inspiration strikes. What if you could use some newfangled technology to improve communication between cats and their owners? Better sleep, happier cats, less time opening and closing the door. If you don't have a cat, but you have like a pre-verbal child, or just like, what do you want? And please let me live my life, but I hope you're happy as well. All right, so let's get hacking. I do love this logo, I have to say. Like, I know AI generated art, controversial topic, but that's pretty good. I'm pretty proud of my prompt engineering.
Very Art Deco.
Yeah, that was in my prompt. So let's say, all right, you had an amazing idea. You secured a little funding via some compelling slideware. So coming soon, Fluent's flagship feature, AI-powered meow analysis. Do you have any experience at all? Probably not, but you've got passion and 2 in-house beta testers. So what could go wrong? So there's Hi, Jody. There's 2 paths that we could take here. And keep in mind, this is very overly simplified. When you try to do something like this, you really realize what exponential means and you think of branching paths. So often at this point, we're at a fork in the road, and you've probably seen this in your own company. Do we go for shoot for the moon? Let's try something really radical. You know, our job's a lot harder in terms of development, monitoring, finding experts who actually know what they're doing, and even rarer, can fix it when it falls over. But if it works, like, think about the buzz. Or keep it steady. There's some reliable acoustic models. There were some for birds in like the 70s. They'll probably work. So let's build an app around something we know is, it does something that people might be interested in. So I was going to do live polling, but I was like, that's something that's just going to break. Getting back to basics, our Moscow requirements as a product manager. I put that as a won't. So we're just going to yell out, and you can just put emojis in Zoom and I'll interpret them. This isn't scientific, and we can always run through twice, and I'll share the link with Renton and he can put it on the. All right, so are we going the experimental route or the simple route? What's your choice? Experimental? All right. All right, so you get some media buzz for this breakthrough in meow translation accuracy based on some very scientific studies led by your friend Emily and 2 cats, very large sample size. You start to get a little worried about using people other than yourself to fine tune that state-of-the-art algorithm that you tossed together in a Jupyter notebook. But you've got the spotlight briefly, and that fades quite quickly in this hyped up space. So the 2 cats usually respond positively if it translates, hey, I want pets. All right, give you pets. Hey, I want food. All right. Hey, let me out. Okay. As myself, my house feels a little happier. I'm sleeping a little better, but I got a few scratches as well. Maybe attributed ask for belly pets at the wrong time. Actually, I'm realizing that totally happened to me. So there are 2 directions we can take. We've got a little hype. We've got a little buzz. Things work well enough. So should we let this fly and try to move on to the next idea? Or should we slow our roll and learn a little bit from these scratches? What's your choice? I knew Jennifer was going to say learn. Let's try one more time because Jennifer is so forceful. I'm not sure what the word was. I just looked right at her. All right. Learn or move forward. All right, we'll go for learn. Since this isn't real life, we can always try again. So let's learn from these scratches. You can try again in real life too. So there are a few lingering reports of meow translations expressing a desire for world domination, but you took a little time to learn, to retune your algorithm, didn't roll out anything new, just focusing on that user experience. So some ideas. How could you build trust? Maybe you clearly displayed your confidence levels. If I had a low confidence translation for pet my belly, I might go, oh, I think I'm not gonna, as a human in the loop, I'm not gonna respond to that. Or we could, move away from this idea of, hey, everything has to be perfectly automated and one size fits all. We could have a survey filled out by the owner. You know your cat. Are they a belly pet acceptor? If not, never, ever, ever accept a translation.
Did you say perfectly?
I didn't. Let's say I did. No, I'm not that level of penny. Or if you know Maciek, maybe he's rubbed off on me too much after however many years we've worked together. All right, so let's see if we took this path. We started off a bit radical, then we learned, slowed our roll a little bit, kind of like that confidence curve that you showed. Where do we end up? All right, let's say we've got a stable and reliable offering. You focus your growth on community engagement, kind of like we're here at Atlassian and Google Developer Group, and building that loyalty of your customer base. So you start to offer, instead of newfangled tech, you have your core of your cat translation, but also you offer some behavioral seminars and you incentivize slow, steady beta participation through your Test for Treats initiative. So you're ending, you have a solid base. You've also inspired some competitors to introduce some innovative on that more flashy axis, but less reliable features. And maybe you build out some third-party integrations for your risk takers, but you're taking a more steady approach. Should we try one more time?
Yes.
There's only 4 endings. We'll do one more. Yeah. And I'll share the link. All right, this time, where are we gonna go? Are we shooting for the moon or keeping it steady? Steady. All right, I'm going with my nice 1970s model based on bird acoustic analysis. I have a linguistics degree, so I spent a lot of time studying birds and vervet monkeys. Google baby vervet monkey calls when you get home. It's really cute. All right, so you're prioritizing stability, solid user experience, and refining a known model. So you've got yourself, you've got Stack Overflow, and you've got a designer. You take a few months, you develop an initial offering, you soft launch with a small, loyal group. You see some competitors in the same space going viral. They've got flashy augmented reality cat pose analysis. So what do? Do you maybe expand your market or keep on refining those current use cases? What direction are we taking? Refine? All right, we're taking the steady Eddie approach. God, it's like people are trying to get the right answers. There's one where you can kind of tank the company. It's fun. All right, so you focus on user experience refinement and improved meow translation accuracy. So you've got a core group of users who are the most focused on reliability. Let's say you have a high-risk application. It took me a long time to think about how I could, but I was like, all right, cat show judges, and you're using this translator to interview contestants and influence their personality scores. That's really important. So that's a group who's gonna be loyal, but they're probably not gonna accept that change if you go with that flashy AI approach after building on that solid base. So where do we end up? I love this picture. All right, so very timely since once again, Atlassian Google Developer Group. So leveraging that reliability and user friendliness to build out a global community. You gradually roll out features based on user feedback, develop that loyal community. Other apps get a lot of attention for bridging species communication gaps with flashy tech, but also for high profile and disastrous errors. So I was trying to get your minds into the more product-oriented trade-off game, but I think these challenges are very familiar to anyone in the engineering space. We're often just speaking very different languages in terms of the personas and markets and metrics that we're tracking. I'll show you one that I really liked. A few other options here. Yeah, just for the dog people, I needed to make sure. This is where you really tank the company. So you get that. And so you decided, yeah, on to the next thing, on to the next thing. You're like, oh, this is cool. But actually, it turns out your model is telling me like my plant or pillow or toddler wants to go outside. Does this actually work? Yeah, exactly. So yeah. Anyway, guys, that was just a little bit of an exercise. I hope it was fun. I just wanted to give a chance in a lighthearted manner to think about how at the product level, at that kind of tippy top of the pyramid, we're dealing with the same challenges and trade-offs. Yeah. How many of you feel totally confident when you release a new feature? Yeah, it's good Claire says that. That was a trick question because she's the lead on a lot of my features. And how many of you, especially as engineers, actually feel like you have a good understanding of the business goals of every new feature that you release? Yeah. So anyway, one bit of advice that I will give for folks who are thinking of entering the product space or looking to hold product leadership accountable. Any sort of design doc that you work on, I would highly recommend to try, and this sounds like bureaucracy, but it really works. Look it up. Put a RACI matrix at the top. Who is responsible? Who is accountable? Who is consulted? Who is informed? Holly's idea of having like an AI that shuts down non-productive contributions in meetings. I'm sure it's not only incident bridges where we start to think, who's actually making a decision here? Who actually has a seat at the table? So I think one very important way to bridge that gap, especially between decision makers in the product space and the engineering space, who at the end of the day have shared values, but are often driving at building cool stuff from very different directions, is understand the role of each decision maker as you design something new. That makes it a lot easier to hold folks accountable and bridge that gap. Get a RACI matrix in any charter or whatever format that you use. Try it out. And also, some PMs would be allergic to this. It's interesting to try out, though. I generally put success criteria in every charter. From a product perspective, that's often focused on more business-oriented metrics. However, working with your tech lead and your more SRE-oriented stakeholders, work out that translation. Okay, like if I'm optimizing for one thing on the product side, what does that mean for you in terms of more SRE-oriented metrics? So defining that common language upfront, that's often the way to overcome some of that friction as we build this sort of lovely generative culture that Jennifer taught us about. Anyway, so that's it from me.
I have one question. How did that take you only 2 hours?
I used a very user-friendly online tool with good UX. Yeah, it was fun.
Do we have any questions for Julianne? Apart from my one.
Yeah, it's more so. I know you come from technical.
Yeah.
Yeah, forgot about that. Sorry. I know you came from a technical background, but how did you kind of make that decision to go towards the product side of things? What changed?
Yeah.
That's nice.
So for me, it was very gradual. And like I said, I didn't necessarily know what a product manager did. And it turns out I was kind of slowly stepping towards that area without realizing it. I was a very hands-on contributor as a machine learning engineer. I was a Scrum Master for, God, it was probably a short amount of time, but it felt like forever. And I started to work on bigger picture problems over time. I moved to architecture, and that kind of scope of problem solving was very interesting to me, working across teams, working at more cross product patterns and goals. And I started partnering with some product managers to help charter features that were within my subject matter expertise, especially I think more AI or ML driven features. They can often, we often think it tosses the rule book out for maybe how we design a test strategy, how we design a feature, how we monitor success. It doesn't. But sometimes finding that mapping between, you know, what we know works in terms of process and how we apply it to a unfamiliar or novel area can take a little bit of time. So that was a nice transition point for me. I didn't wake up one day and say, oh, I want to be a product manager. But thinking about the sorts of problems that I liked solving and some of the challenges that I wanted to take on next, these questions of how do we help human beings absorb change, things like this, very interesting. I hope that answers your question.
Just had a short one. I think Silicon Valley Bank, if it comes back, is 100% behind the last version of Fluent. It's going to the moon and won't get taken over by the dog one. And I do have a cat-obsessed SRE on my team for a different company who will be absolutely in love with. He makes things exactly like this all the time. So
oh, nice. This was my
thank you
first
very
one,
much for
so
that.
thank you. Thanks, guys.